Hi, everybody. Welcome to NUMU. Here we are, virtually. I'm so happy you're joining us this evening. We are so proud about what we're going to share with you tonight. My name is Amy Davis. I'm the Executive Director of Museum Los Gatos, and delighted to welcome you to our brand new exhibition, Sawyer Rose, Carrying Stones. And I really can't think of a better show to reopen NUMU with as we emerge from the pandemic. Sawyer examines the sort of unspoken, unrecognized labor of women in our society who, take care of the home, take care of children and other family members, and take care of our community. And all the emotional and physical toll that it takes that we often don't talk about. Sawyer's work exposes this labor and helps us recognize all the ways women hold up our society. So, I find it so interesting that this issue has become even more acute during the pandemic. We've learned that millions of women have exited the workforce in order to take care of their families. So I would encourage you to keep an eye out for our newsletter where we'll announce programs that help unpack some of these issues, all of the above. So I want to take a moment to express all of our gratitude to you, our donors and members, who have supported us through thick and thin this past year. You, our board, and especially our staff, who have pivoted, adjusted, and adapted like crazy. So also wanting to express particular gratitude to our exhibit sponsors. Major support for Sawyer Rose Carrying Stones is provided by Sixth Sense, with additional support from the town of Los Gatos, the Borganic Foundation, Jan Swartz and Bob Badens, the Kelly family, Wanda Kaunacki, the Michael and Elise Parsons Foundation, the County of Santa Clara Commission on the Status of Women, and the San Jose Women's Club. Thank you so much for supporting this exhibition. So we're almost on to our program. Soon we will see Julie Ericsson, NUMU's art curator, and of course Sawyer Rose. Just to give you a little background on Sawyer, she's a sculptor, installation, and social practice artist. She was born and raised in North Carolina and is a graduate of Williams College in Massachusetts. And she currently lives and works in the San Francisco Bay Area. Throughout her career, she's used her artwork to shine a spotlight on contemporary social and ecological issues. We're so fortunate to have them here today, and pretty soon we're going to get on with the show. Just a couple of housekeeping notes for you all who are on Zoom today. During tonight's program, you'll follow along as me and Julie have a conversation with Sawyer about her work. We'll have time at the end for your questions, so be sure to put those in chat as you think of them, and we will have time at the end to talk about them and answer them. Turn on speaker view. This is a Zoom meeting format, so you're going to want to go up to the right corner. And I don't know if I'm pointing up to the right, but go to the right corner on your screen and select speaker view, and that way you'll see the tour best and larger on your screen. Turn on captions. This does have closed captions. I know it's going to be hard to hear us through our masks. I'm sorry for that. We're really working on staying safe here at NUMU, and so turn on the captions if that helps you understand what we're saying better. Please remain muted until it's time for our Q&A. And that's about it for housekeeping, except to mention that there are going to be changes to this show over time, and we'll talk about that at the end of our program as well. But you need to run, not walk, to NUMU because in August, things are going to start changing. So you'll definitely want to come back and see this show over and over again. So now we're going to follow me, and we're going to talk to Julie and Sawyer about the first piece.
Hi, everybody. My name is Julie Ericsson. I'm the art curator here at NUMU. Hopefully, you've seen me before. I'm joined tonight by Sawyer Rose, our artist, and she's been here all week with us installing all of these works, and we've been working really hard to get the gallery in shape for our opening tomorrow. We're very excited. And we're standing in front of a piece entitled Tracy. And all of the pieces in the show except for a few special 2D works, are named after real women. So we're looking forward to hearing those stories from Sawyer tonight. Can you tell us a little bit about Tracy, the person?
Sure. Hi, it's so great that everybody's here tonight. I'm really excited about this opportunity to share this work with you. Thank you so much to you, Amy, and Julie, and everybody here who's been helping all week. So Tracy. Tracy is, she works full-time as an attorney, and she is also the mother of an 8-year-old karate wonder girl. So as a mom, Tracy has to manage that practice schedule. And on top of that, she does almost all the domestic labor in her home. So she's a really, really full schedule. And she was one of the first women that I collected her work time data, her paid labor hours and her unpaid labor hours, to see, what it would look like if I sort of drew a picture of it in sculpture. So this is the piece that came out of her data. So the way the project works in general is I get a participant who's interested in sharing her labor data with me. I developed an app that all the participants have in their phones, and they track their time for me. And then when I get that data, I translate it into a large public scale sculpture that is readable as an infographic, basically. So in the case of Tracy, she gave me her data, and for every paid work hour, I made one of these concrete looking forms. And for every unpaid hour that she reported to me, I made one of these brass wireframe shapes. And then if you can see in the matrix of the piece, there are empty spaces just here and there, very few. In all my pieces where there's an empty space in the grid, that is an hour where the participant was not doing work. So these are just waking hours. It's not when they were sleeping, but when they were not working. And so it's important to think about when you're looking at these that not working means anything other than, like, it could mean hanging out with your friends, it could be watching TV, but it also could be like going to the dentist. So it's not necessarily fun time. It's like all the rest of her life is packed into where you see these spaces.
Wow, thank you, Sawyer.
Sure, yeah.
It's such a clear pattern that you're using to tell the story. Can you tell us a little bit more about the materials that you chose?
Yeah, so paid labor tends to be more widely recognized as labor. You come home with a paycheck, you have an office. It's very easy to see that. And it also gets a lot of social cred, right? Washing the dishes, doing the laundry, cooking, cleaning, childcare, elder care. Those are all things we do as unpaid labor, and they don't get the same social credit. They're not really seen and understood as the work that they are sometimes. So I chose these weightier forms to represent the paid labor, but the more transparent forms to represent the unpaid labor that's less seen and less recognized.
Wonderful. Shall we go meet Lauren?
Yeah, let's go meet Lauren.
So this is one of your newest pieces.
This piece is actually brand new and is debuting at this exhibition for the first time. Even Lauren herself hasn't seen it all put together in one piece. So this is brand new, and I'm really, really excited about it. It's a piece I've really enjoyed making. So I'll tell you a little bit about Lauren. She is a professor of history, and what I was interested in looking at with her story was the inequities that women experience in academia. So she's a history professor, but she's also the mom of an 8-year-old. And so I had her track her hours the same way that Tracy did. And, you know, I've sort of developed a visual language that follows along between all these pieces. So in this work about Lauren's life, the brown pieces that look like books are representing her paid labor hours. So this is when she was at work getting paid. The white book-looking objects are representing hours of unpaid labor. And then again, the spaces in the matrix show the very few hours when she was not working. So everything else in her life packed into there.
Wow. And so each of these books is a different shape and size.
Yes. So I like to vary the size of the pieces based on an interview that I do with each of the participants. So I ask them how much variability there is in their life, like is every day exactly the same, or are your days varied and kind of more random? And so I vary the size of the shapes according to how they answer that question. And I'm always looking for ways to add little bits of interest about the person, you know, who the piece is about, and like leave little Easter eggs that maybe, you know, nobody would know unless I told them that was about that. So this one definitely has a really fun Easter egg. The sizes of the books for her paid labor are standard publishing sizes for academic books. I looked it up, I Googled it. And the books for her unpaid labor are standard publishing sizes for children's books. Wow. So I felt that really, like, that little tidbit really reflected what she was doing with her life. And it kind of helps with the storytelling of the piece to really get a feel for what this actual woman is actually doing with her time.
Wow, that's such an important detail. The chains and the colors and the way that you've gilded everything is really beautiful.
Thank you. The chains, actually, I don't think we've ever talked about the chains. So I can share that too. In a lot of my pieces, I use chains and ropes and tethers of all sorts because a lot of women express to me that they feel tied to their family, tied to their work, tied to their responsibilities. So metaphorically, I use a lot of tethers in my work. These particular tethers, since I had books, I was thinking about Harry Potter's the restricted section of the library where all the books are on chains. So yeah, sometimes housework can feel like the restricted section.
Wow. Well, Sawyer, so we've talked about Tracy and we've talked about Lauren, and a question I know that you get a lot is how do you find these stories? How do you find these individual women who then you do this project with?
That's a great question. I do get asked that a lot. So I'm thrilled that people are interested in the women that I'm profiling. So at first, it was women that I knew who had interesting work stories. I mean, that's what it comes down to. It's got to be an interesting work story for me to be able to tell a story about it. And then as the project progressed, you know, people kept coming up to me more and more and saying, oh, I know somebody with a great work story. Let me share it with you. So some of these women I know, Tracy was my college roommate. And most of these women I don't know, or maybe only know, you know, through friends of friends. They're from all over the country. Lauren is from Ohio, or is in Ohio right now teaching. So I look for, it's very important, I feel like, for this project to tell diverse work stories. So I'm always looking for people, of course, of like different ages, different races, but also like different work functions, whether they have children or don't have children. I try to make it as broad a demographic as I can.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Well, I think maybe it's time to head back to the spotlight gallery.
Okay, all right.
So as everybody's walking through, you'll notice that there's still evidence of installation going on, which I think is a really special opportunity to see kind of behind the scenes. What does a museum do when they put on a show? So definitely come visit in person and you'll see a different aspect to it. So wow, so we were in the main gallery, now we're in the spotlight gallery, which is kind of towards the back of the ground floor. And oh my gosh, here we are in Dolly. Whew, you gotta see this in person. You know, this one really stands out, Sawyer. It's different from the rest. It takes up the whole room. Did you mean for this to feel immersive? What, you know, maybe tell us a little bit about Dolly and about the experience here that we're having.
Sure, yeah, so immersive, yes, I will immerse myself in it while I talk, in fact. Yes, I wanted this piece to be huge. I'll tell you a little bit about Dolly. She's a teaching artist. She has been teaching in Oakland schools and she does a ton of different gig work. At one point, she was doing 6 different jobs at once. And she also, even with that, she does a ton of volunteer work. And community volunteerism is like caretaking of the larger community. And I lump it in with unpaid labor. You know, somebody's got to be in the school volunteering. Somebody's got to be at your house of worship. Somebody's got to be at the nonprofit. And that statistically falls more on women too. So I looked at Darlene's hours, and the way this sculpture translates into a data visualization is her paid labor hours are in the gold sacks with an actual stone being carried inside them. And then the silver bags represent her unpaid labor hours. And if the camera pans down, you can see that the stones that would have been in the bag have fallen out. They've fallen out through the bottom, and that money is not collected. So yeah, I wanted this piece to be huge. It's really important for the pieces to be large and to take up space unapologetically, gigantic, take up an entire room, because, you know, women who speak up more about this, men who speak up more about this, and let this topic take up more space, it really benefits everybody. So no more hiding. We're going to talk about it.
So maybe we can just look at Darlene's portrait here, which is still in progress, being hung, but
it is. So what I do with the portraits is, as you've noticed, I always have the participant sort of lifting and carrying, or at least interacting with the pieces of their sculpture. So like shouldering their burden in a real physical way. And that's kind of where I cross more from data visualization into storytelling. And I feel like it's really important to show people that, like, yeah, this is interesting data and this tells one kind of story, but there's a real woman working these real hours behind that. And here she is lifting her and carrying her stones. It puts a human face on the numbers, and I feel like that's a very effective way to communicate.
right. Definitely feel immersed in the story, you know, in her story with this piece.
Yeah, you know, I feel like if people are able to interact with the pieces and, you know, have a visceral personal experience with them, it, you know, gets in your brain more. You get more from it. So I always like my pieces to be, you know, communicating with the people and with the floor and with the room. And,
That's great. Yeah, in museums, we don't usually let people touch the art. I don't know, I haven't really covered that yet, but
Yeah, you know,
you're the artist, so.
well, yeah, you know, this one is more for walking through, but as you know, later we're gonna show you one that you can touch, not just touch, but be a part of, co-create with us, so that'll be exciting.
Yeah, great. Okay, well, I think we're ready to go see Renee.
Let's go see Renee.
All right. So, you know, one thing that we've learned about Renee since getting to know your work is that Renee is also an artist. So do you feel, you know, a connection to that as an artist yourself?
I do, certainly. She is, this is Renee over here. She is an internationally known artist, and actually the way I met Renee was really cool. I met her as I was her liaison as she was accepting a Lifetime Achievement Award. So I mean, I am such a fangirl of her and her work, and so it was a real treat for me to get to meet her at all. And then, you know, I kind of screwed up my courage and asked if she'd be in the project, and she said yes. So that was phenomenal to me. So her work, you know, the things that resonate with me through her being an artist is, you know, I see like these long chunks of time doing work, then, you know, some like really broken up bits of time. And I definitely feel that as an artist. You know, it's hard to find a chunk of hours to get into your flow, and that's definitely something she said. You know, it's like, I remember her telling me that like one of these open spaces was like, she was at the DMV the whole time. Yeah, oh, and that's not good news for anybody. But yeah, so she said, you know, all these daily life things, it's hard to get in a zone. And in terms of how I made her piece, her being an artist, you know, I've said in other pieces, I try to take bits and pieces from their lives to figure out what their piece is going to look like. But because she's an artist, I have this treasure trove of visual information that was hers, that I could pick from. So her work actually deals a lot with voodoo and New Orleans, and it's really like funky and cool. And so I chose this sort of this plus cross motif based on one of her prints that I had seen. And the crossroads in like voodoo tradition has to do with like the crossroads of like the spiritual and the physical. And I was like, oh man, that's exactly what an artist does. Like we take spiritual and make it into something physical. So I thought, okay, this whole metaphor works. It just comes together. A lot of her work is black and silver with little bits of red. So I pulled that all from her. And again, you can see that I've used, in this case, very large tethers as the framework of the piece.
To put this body of work together, you're clearly drawing on tools from many different disciplines. You know, anthropology, sociology, economics, fine art. Can you tell us a little bit more about where that comes from and kind of why you think it's important to use so many different pieces of information?
Yeah, well, so I've always had an interest, like a broad interest in different subjects. I will tell you, math was not my favorite school, but I use it all the time for this. But yeah, you know, I used to want to be an archaeologist because I felt like that was something that was sociology and art and, you know, digging in the dirt and history all combined. So I feel a little bit sometimes like when I'm searching for my stories and I find like this really juicy story, almost like I'm an archaeologist and I've discovered a treasure. So, you know, I collect stories rather than artifacts. I create the artifacts from them. But also, to your point about like, why do it? I find that, I mean, we all know that people learn in different ways, right? So some people are visual learners and some people just want the facts. And so when I first started doing this project, I was just building the sculptures because, I'm an artist and I figured, okay, what I'm going to do. And then I had people say, well, this is really cool. Who's the woman behind it? So I started thinking, okay, I'm going to do these portraits of the women and tell the stories. So now we have data and we also have storytelling combined. And I thought, okay, that's pretty robust. Now we're going to be learning something. And then as I started showing the work, mostly, almost everybody coming through was cool with that. And there was a certain percentage of visitors who were like, yeah, but I just want the numbers. I want you to tell me just the numbers. And so I was like, okay, well, I hadn't counted on that, but if that's how I can get my message across to you, let's do that. So I started making these two-dimensional wall works that go with the topic of each. And if you come here to the show, you'll be able to see them. So like, we have women in the arts, and she's a woman in the arts, and I feel like it completes the package. Sort of like I've started with this particular woman's data, I've told this particular woman's story, and now it's a human story. And then I circle back to the data, and we've seen it from 3 different ways then. And I feel like that really builds bridges of understanding about the topic.
You must have learned so much about data collection during this process.
I have, and I think it's important to note, like, I'm not an economist, I'm an artist. There's a lot of things I'm not that I'm doing. And I've been lucky enough to speak to some middle schoolers this week, and I keep telling them, like, don't let that stop you. Like, you can learn so much so quickly. I didn't know woodworking, and now I do. And I didn't know data analysis, and now I do. So it's been a really great journey.
That's so exciting. I love that kind of practice. You're really bringing in all sorts of skills. I'd love to take a look at Anna and Hillary together.
Yeah, let's look at it.
So this is a family of women that you have studied and collected data on, both of them.
Yes. So this one has like kind of a different angle that's really interesting. This is Anna and Hillary over here. So they're 2 women with 2 kids. The little one just snuck the portrait, and I was so thrilled because it really makes it. Their older kid was upstairs playing. Anna is kneeling in the purple, and Hillary is standing up in the pink. And Anna homeschools their older kid who has learning differences while also taking care of the toddler. And Hillary did web and technical work for the Obama administration, and now she's the Chief Technical Officer of Ontario Province. And so they're both like super smart, super high-powered women doing 2 totally different things with their time. And because they're 2 women in the same household, I felt like, okay, well, their labor hours are intertwined, right? So I felt like their sculpture should reflect the same thing. The hours should be intertwined. So the green pods are Anna's stay-at-home, work-at-home, unpaid hours. The gray pods are Hillary's unpaid hours, and the silver, more outward-facing pieces are Hillary's paid hours, the hours she was at work. Now this one works a little, this is a little more storytelling and a little less data. So this part, it's hard to see maybe on the Zoom, but there are lines on this, like yellow lines going down. This is a rigorous accounting of the hours they spent in the order they spent them, like all the rest. There are very, very few spaces where nobody was doing, everybody was doing no work. But then at a certain point, I just quit mapping the data and I let the pods just fall all over the floor, all over the place. And the reason I did that was because when I interviewed them, I asked, like, I wanted more of their lived experience of it. Like, the numbers are interesting, but like, what does it feel like? And they said, yeah, I feel like we've really got it together for the most part. But then, at night with 2 little kids and you just want everybody to go to bed and brush their teeth. And everything kind of goes to heck in the evening sometimes. And so that's kind of what they felt like. By the end of the day, we're just done. And so, this is where I have the opportunity as an artist to cross from data, visualization, and being like super rigorously truthful with that, to being also telling stories and being rigorously truthful to what they have told me they feel. So as an artist, I feel really lucky to have that flexibility.
Wow, yeah, what an interesting family to have to represent.
Yeah.
I think we have one more piece that we can talk about, which is very special. It's also a new one.
Let's do.
Yes, let's take a look.
So I'm really excited about what we're going to see next. It is as new as anything I have made. And it's interactive.
So, Sawyer, I wanted to ask you, as we look at this new piece, you've talked a bit about our children brushing their teeth. That struggle is real. So we were bonding over that for sure. But I just wanted to take a moment and ask, like, I mentioned this in the beginning, that the pandemic has had a disproportionate effect on women, and we've seen news stories come out over the months about women leaving the workforce, women carrying the physical and emotional labor that, to kind of uphold the family, uphold society. Why, but like in your view, why is this an important topic for us all to talk about?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, to the people involved, to the women working, if they are tasked with all the domestic labor that they can take, then they have obviously less time to advance at work and in society. And you might say, well, okay, that's fine, there's somebody doing the paid labor, but it actually turns out that many, many, many studies have shown that having more women in the workforce increases productivity, it makes for a happier workplace, it makes for less attrition, fewer people quitting. It really, studies of venture capital firms show that boards that have women as part of them, those companies do much better than boards that are all men, because women are 50% of our population and they bring a whole different skill set and set of views. So it really affects everybody, and everybody does better for having more diversity. Yeah. And the other thing, that I think it's really important to realize, and became especially evident during COVID, is that unpaid labor is a pillar that holds up our whole economy, and that's what this piece talks about. So metaphorically, if this is our economy, dangling up here with no support, no evidence support, like we know that it's supported somehow. So I have these pillars down here, and these represent unpaid labor, or they're going to represent your unpaid labor when you come and co-create this piece. So the way this is gonna work is, so when you come to NUMU and you want to take part in this sculpture, there will be this little questionnaire that helps you count up your unpaid labor hours. how many you do every week. You'll take one of these spheres and say you do 25 unpaid labor hours every week. You'll put 25 of these stones in your sphere, close it up, and then I have like a cooking show I have on. And then you actually get to add it to the sculpture. So you drop it in and it magically floats to the bottom. So when this whole sculpture is full of your work data, these will be the pillars that actually hold up the economy. And those pillars are full of hours and hours of women's unpaid work. So this is gonna be a lot of fun.
This seems like a really great exhibit to see, like with your family or with a group of friends, you know, especially if maybe you're struggling to have that conversation, you know, a way for everyone to see physically manifest those hours.
Yeah, you know, what I'm trying to do with this is like, I want people to come in and have fun. It's a serious topic and like maybe not that fun to discuss, you know, in your own home, but I want people to come and have a fun experience and enjoy the aesthetics of the pieces. And then, you know, as that draws you in, it's a nice way to get into the topic. And certainly with the interactives that I do, a lot of people come and they play with a thing and it's fun. And they say, wow, you know, I never really realized what I do with my time. And even perhaps more importantly, I never really realized what my partner does, like what my spouse in our home has been doing with their time. So it's a lot of fun, but there's a lot of learning to do too.
This has been a really wonderful overview, and let's see, I mean, we're doing so good on time. Maybe we could answer some audience questions for a few minutes and see where that conversation takes us.
Okay, we have one question. Getting people to think personally about their relationship to the exhibit. Are men doing this too?
Absolutely. You know, I feel like everybody should be recognized for the unpaid labor they do. Labor's labor. You know, my point showing you the data is that it falls more on women more often than it does on men. But absolutely, like men should come and do this, and even kids have a great time doing this. You know, they can think about their schoolwork and what do they do for their chores. And it's really the most important thing, I think, is just to open the channels of communication to think about this topic. Because, you know, a lot of people are like, I have never even really thought about it. So, you know, any fun we can have with conversation, we're making progress.
If anybody else has any other questions, please pop them in the chat.
Yeah, love to have your input.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll
Oh.
wait a little bit.
Can men participate?
What's that?
Yeah. Can men participate? That's it.
Yeah.
Men should absolutely participate. Absolutely. It's fun for everybody.
So I think were we talking about this the other day, where it is true, like men also, of course, do a lot of like hidden labor.
Absolutely.
It's just a matter of like counting it off and, you know, acknowledging it. So yeah.
Absolutely. You know, and plenty of men are primary caretakers of children and elders and do all that. So absolutely, I feel like everybody should be recognized for the unpaid labor that they do. It's just, you know, I'm sharing with you statistics of how it shakes out, you know, like nationwide, worldwide, but, you know.
Yeah.
We have a couple more questions.
Oh, great.
Have you found men's data compares to women's?
Yes. So there are these amazing time use surveys that the government does through the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it's all like free data available on Google. You can go find it. In the United States, the way it averages out is women are doing approximately 4 hours of unpaid labor per day, and men are doing about 2.5. So I'm always careful to say these are averages. This might not be what's happening in your home. It might be totally different in your own home, but they have surveyed thousands upon thousands and thousands of people all over the country, and that's how it shakes out. Yeah.
It's really interesting to compare like our individual experience to the broader experience of our community or state or nation. I mean, of course there are going to be differences, but we're talking about on average.
We're talking about on average.
Yeah.
And then if you look at it worldwide, so my study is just women from the United States, but if you look at it globally, women are doing more unpaid labor than men in literally every single country in the world. There is no country in the world that is even equal. And the United States, if you're curious, falls about a quarter of the way from the end of toward equality. Your Nordic states, they're the most equal, and then we're about a quarter of the way through the countries. But yeah, there's no place in the world where women are not handling more unpaid labor.
And we have one more question.
Cool.
Did participating in your art pieces change these women's approach to their work life and schedules? Have they shared with you the lasting impact of reflecting on their labor?
Oh, that's such a good question, and thank you for asking it. I'm so excited. Yes, down to a person. Every participant in my study has said, I really didn't fully understand how I spent my time. I'm super surprised at what my data looks like. I thought I had a more balanced life. You know, a lot of them have said, you know, I think about work-life balance. You know, I'm conscious of thinking about that. And each and every single person has been surprised. There was a really poignant exchange with a woman whose sculpture we haven't yet visited, but you will see it when you come here. And she actually cried with me because she said that nobody had ever cared enough to ask what she does with her time. And she's an older woman, like early 60s. She said, nobody has ever cared what I do with my time. Nobody's ever asked. And we started the first 5 or 10 minutes of the conversation was me reassuring her that I really wanted to know. She's like, why do you want to know? Nobody's ever wanted to know that. So actually, I'm really interested. So yes, a lot of these women have reassessed and redistributed in their homes, you know, had some conversations about how things can be more balanced. And yeah, it's really made an impact. So that, you know, that makes me feel like, you know, if nobody ever saw this work ever again, I hope that at least I have contributed to these women's experiences in a positive way.
That's incredible. Like people don't even realize themselves, like haven't even acknowledged this in themselves in some cases.
Truly, yeah. Each and every single time I go, wow, look at your data, here's how it lays out. And every single time they go, what? That's me? Yeah. Because I do the pieces that you see, the hours are exactly as they were reported to me, like in the order that they were reported. So I'm not fudging with anything. It's exactly what they did.
More questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have you ever studied like the couple, like side by side? Both hours.
I did do one piece, one diptych, like a pair of pieces for friends of mine. It was an interesting experience. They played very nicely together. But I have not built a whole entire giant sculpture of the men and women, but I did do, it was like a large work on paper comparing the two, and they looked very, very different. And, you know, this is a guy who helps out around the house. He's present with the kids, and he's a great dad, he's a great guy, and you know, it just, the thing that I find most interesting for them, because, you know, they have a system that works, and yeah, you have a system that works, you do what you want, you know. But what I found interesting from like a data perspective was how large his blocks of time were versus how broken up hers were. Like she's, you know, running to work and she works for 3 hours, but she comes back, she's got to pick up the kids, you know. So that's a large difference between the wage earners and the unpaid workers. And I hear a lot from people who do a lot of unpaid work that they feel like the brain is in 3 places at all times. So it really does have a mental impact, you know, not just what you can get done and what you can achieve, but it's a little like, kind of makes you a little wild to be jumping around activities like that. So it's something that needs to be considered.
And we have one more question that's a little bit directed at everyone. Are you going to come back to give another in-person tour once we're able to mingle?
Ooh, great question. Okay, so we're working on a whole series of programs, and thanks, of course, to our sponsors, and in particular, the Commission on the Status of Women and the Women's Club have underwritten 3 programs with Sawyer that we are planning in person. And, you know, but then we'll always have a virtual plan B, but, you know, that's what things are looking like. So stay tuned for that series of programs coming to your inbox soon as we line up some dates. We're hoping to do that in the next week or 2, is get all that information put together. So thanks for hanging with us in this like pivoting, adapting pandemic mode that we're emerging from. Should we? Well, Sawyer, it has just been so amazing to spend the week with you at the museum, and just like speechless. I mean, it's just felt so good to install this exhibit, talk about this important issue, and, you know, really think about, you know, how we can engage our community in these important conversations. And like, you have put so much thought, and every detail is so intentional that, you know, it's just blowing my mind every day I walk in here. And so I can't wait for everybody to come see it. And I said this before, but please run, do not walk to NUMU. We are open Friday through Sunday, currently starting tomorrow, 12 to 7. We're open a little later on Fridays. We want you to, you know, swing by on your way to after work cocktails and whatever you're doing. And then on Saturday, Sunday, we're open 10 to 4. Now, keep in mind that our hours may change as we continue to have guidelines announced to us about like, what we can do as far as being open to the public and having gatherings and everything. So stay tuned for potentially expanded hours beyond Friday through Sunday. And you'll also see different work, the duration of the exhibit. There's going to be a swap in August. So you're going to want to come before August so you can see everything, and then come after August to see the new things. And then in November, it's going to change again. So this is so exciting for us to have a show to run this long, but it's going to be constantly new and exciting. So there will be something new to see the whole time. So I want to take just another opportunity. Thank you, Sawyer. Thank you so much for gracing me with your work. Thank you, Julie, for joining me in this dialogue today. Thank you. And you have not noticed, but behind the scenes are several other amazing staff people. We have Kim behind the camera, Alyssa Ray, our new communications and administrative manager, and Cristiano is back here too, our exhibits manager, who has been hard at work installing this all week. So we're so grateful for this amazing team. And then once again, our sponsors for Caring Stones, 6 Cents, with additional support from the Town of Los Gatos, the Organic Foundation, Jen Swartz and Bob Baden, the Kelly family, Wanda Kalnacki, Michael and Elise Persons, the County of Santa Clara Commission on the Status of Women, and the San Jose Women's Club. So we hope you stay safe and healthy and come see some art. We can't wait to see you. Thank you, everyone.